Hello and welcome to a very special panel at SFFCon 2021. I have with me an amazing collection of authors that are all super bestsellers in the science fiction and fantasy genre. And if you would all like to introduce yourselves, please.
Hi, my name's Nick Webb, and I write primarily science fiction. I've been writing for, 5, 6, 7, 8 years now, and just happy to join you and do this panel.
I'm A.G. Riddle. I write sci-fi thrillers. First one came out about 8 years ago. Been doing it since, and happy to be here.
My name is Robert J. Crane. I write mostly in the fantasy genre. I published my first book in 2011, so it's been about 10 years. I guess I'm the old man of this group.
I'm Jay Allen. I publish science fiction as well, and I've been doing it for 9 years, so he is the old man.
Just confirming, old man.
Fantastic. So how did each of you come to be a best-selling author? Was it one breakout book that really launched you into stardom, or was it a slow climb?
Start with the bestseller.
Well, it's a good question. I know for myself, I wrote my first book. It took me about 2.5 years, and writing was a second career for me, and it was something that I'd always loved science fiction, but I didn't know anything about writing a novel. And so I really went to school. I read all these books on it. And that first novel, I bet I wrote 10 drafts. I wrote it to the point that I wasn't getting any better. And I felt like I needed to put the book out into the market and start learning and figure out if there really was an audience for my work. And that was March of 2013. I think the world's very different now. The marketplace is very different. But that book really took off. I felt like I had done some good work on it, and I was really proud of it, still really proud of that book, but it really took off on a level that I never expected. So very fortunate in that respect. And then, I wrote the second book and third book in that trilogy. And I guess back then I felt like I was writing pretty rapidly. I finished it within a year. Now these days it's not the quickest pace, but I was also re-editing my first book and learning a lot from reviews. But for me, it was the first book. And how about the rest of you guys?
Well, my first book that actually started taking off, it was book 7 it was book 7. And when I started writing, I wasn't trying to be a writer. I was just literally filling spare time. It was like I was playing lots of video games, and video games, they keep track of your hours you play, and I'm like, holy crap, that's a lot of hours that I've spent on video games the past year, like 300, 400 hours. And I said, okay, let's do something else with this time. So I said, let's write a book, and I'm not going to publish it or anything. It's for my kids. Someday they'll read it. And then I wrote that first book, and then I started meeting, guys like this on Facebook and stuff, and we started talking about marketing and KDP, and that's when I really started thinking, maybe I could make a truck payment with this. And so I started writing some more books, and by book 5 and 6, that's what I was doing. I was making truck payments, and by then, so book 7, I was like, let's take everything I've learned over the past few years and apply it all at once. Let's do everything right for this next series I'm going to start. Try to get the best cover I can, try to do some marketing up front, some ads and everything. And so I did that with Constitution, and that was my first real breakout book. And it, skyrocketed up the charts, and it's like, what is going on? I'd never seen this before, and it was fun. And it allowed me to, I was with a company in Huntsville doing rocket work with NASA, and it let me quit that job in a few months and just focus entirely on writing, which was not in the plans. I had no plans for that, but it's just, it's what life deals you.
My first book was not a success. I think it was about book 6 or 7 for me that things took off, and I actually started to make a living. I'd always wanted to, and I had been doing it full time for a while by that point. But I kind of understood the way long tail success works in self-publishing, and so I didn't expect the first book to be a success. I think I made $12 my first year, and so it wasn't until about book 6 or 7 when that came out and you get the momentum behind it That was actually book 3 in the series, Girl in the Box, which has sold millions at this point. But for the first 4 months, until books 2 and 3 came out, the first book only sold like 42 copies, mostly to probably my friends and family who felt sorry for me. Sitting at home with my kids, trying to write books in the meantime. So yeah, persist, definitely.
Yeah, my first book actually started selling. I put it out and it sold 2 or 3 copies a day for 2 weeks, and then it just shot up to 50, 100, 200, 300 a day. And I don't know what it was. I still don't know what it was, but really it took off from the beginning for me. But it's been pretty good. The last year and a half I haven't done that much, but I've got some new things coming out. But that's really all it was. It's like anything else. Some people it takes a certain number of books. Some people it's the first book. It's hard to figure out, but.
Yeah, so it sounds like some of you, it was just that amazing magic that happens sometimes, and for others, there was a bit of the learning. So for those of you who had more of an evolution to get to that point, what did you change in how you were looking at the market or marketing?
So for the first 6 books that I was writing, I wasn't really writing to the market. That's the thing. I was just writing, whatever I want to write, which is great. You should always write what you want to write and what's fun for you. But I think you can do that and also write to market at the same time. You can kind of satisfy both things. You got the Venn diagram of marketable and what I like, and you write what's there in the middle. And that's what I was really missing in that first, for the first several series that I was doing. I had all these crazy ideas that I thought were new and it was going to be fun, and then no one was buying them, and I was like, okay, let's try something new, meaning let's try something old, and let's do the tried and true. Let's do hit all the tropes in space opera and just see if I can make it as marketable as possible, and then. And surprisingly, it worked and it started selling. So for me, it was just a process of learning what is marketable, what is writing to market, and learning all the tropes within the genre that you want to write in, so that you're meeting reader expectations and not, missing a critical part of that genre that you just you didn't know about. So,
in my case, it was more about. Finding a way to break out to a bigger audience, trying to rise above the heavy library of all the options available to a reader if they want to go looking for a book. And so at the time, and this was 2012, I guess, free books were a big thing. So what did it for me was I set the first book in the series free and managed to get it out to a wider audience that way. And I don't think that really works anymore as such, but the basic idea is, especially if you're going to write a series, you've got to get that book in people's hands as quickly as possible. And preferably, especially if you're using the first book as kind of a loss leader, you've got to get them to want to read the subsequent volume. So there's got to be a solid, solid effort at craft to make sure that it pulls them through from book to book if you're writing a series. And so for me, I think it was about, I picked a more wide or broad-based genre. Before that, I'd written epic fantasy, and then the second thing was I worked on my craft so that it was more of a thriller pacing, and people read it, and I got into a bunch of hands, and people read it, and they wanted to read on to the next. And so that's kind of what helped me break out after, not selling very many at first.
Awesome. So you talked a little bit about hitting those genre tropes. So how do you keep your audience engaged and keep hitting all of those things, but still keep it fresh?
Good question.
That's the magic sauce, isn't it? I don't know. That's a good question. Like, I try to stick with the space opera stuff. You got every book in mind. You have to have the space battle, right? You got the starships that are shooting at each other, and the fighter battles, and you've got your captains and your commanders, and you have all the stuff it's going to be in basically every space opera novel. But to keep it fresh, sometimes I try to. I don't know. You have to get into your character's head, inhabit their personality, and say, okay, what's this character really going to do in this situation? I've got the trope, but now what's the real human going to do? And even if even if it's you're doing the trope, you're satisfying the trope. It's you're not breaking any new ground, but people care about the character, doing whatever trope that is. And so even though you're doing something technically stale, it's their favorite character doing it, and they're doing it in their own way. And just that alone is going to make any trope seem like yours, seem like your book. So that's one thing. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of other things that we do for our tropes.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me in sci-fi thrillers, part of the key is finding something I'm really fascinated by and excited about. So some new, scientific mystery or something, has been discovered or, that I speculate about. And so it's like you can be, sort of within the, my book Pandemic is, came out in 2017, which incidentally, if you're thinking about writing a book about, some pandemic or global disaster, when that occurs, it makes it very hard to market a book like this. So it's just like a little sort of one thing to watch out for. But, within the context of a pandemic, I think that book presents as something that, readers that would be fascinated about, biowarfare or pandemics or public health would be interested in. And then within it, there's this whole conspiracy and genetic engineering angle, which are things that, interest me. And, for myself, like more philosophical questions and sort of big ideas are something that I really enjoy. Within techno thrillers, sometimes it just drills down into one idea, but I like to add some scale and scope to it. So I think that to me, the power zone for any author is like, what are you really on fire to write about, and sort of marrying that with what the market really understands and recognizes. And so you're doing something that is fresh, but feels familiar enough not to put someone off. Right.
I sincerely hope that Atlantis Gene is suddenly not marketable next year.
Right.
Yeah, right.
If a global ice age comes, then I'm really in trouble. I mean, the world's in trouble too.
Awesome. So have you cultivated any habits as you have grown into your best-selling author status that you feel have helped you maintain your level of success?
Just writing all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
You do tend to write more when you do well and put out more books a year than you thought were possible. That's one thing for sure. That's the only thing I can think of, but that's definitely.
I agree. I mean, that's the cornerstone. I mean, for me, like having these big breaks between writing and not writing is really tough. And I think it's in the environment we're in. It's like we're all like we have to stop to study advertising or to focus on cover art or deal with whatever it might be. But I think if you write every day, I think it helps you a lot. I mean, it'd be the wind at your back.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
for sure.
I've been in the reverse of that situation where you get into the habit of not writing every day, thinking, okay, I'll start next week. I got this great idea and I'll start it next week, but we both know it's not going to happen. Next week
never comes. Yeah.
And so actually with this book, I tried something new. I just launched the book a few days ago, and usually when I finish a book, I send it off to the editor. And I'm burned out by finishing this book because I'm usually like staying up till 2 o'clock in the morning, pounding out 5,000-10,000 words a day, trying to get this thing done. And then it's done, and I'm relieved. And then I take a little break, and I tell myself, okay, I just need a little break, 2 days, 3 days, that's it, and then I'll start working on something else. Well, those 3 days usually turns into 3 weeks, and then yeah. Mm-hmm. So this time I sent my draft off to the editor, and I immediately, like in that session, that work session, I started the next book, just so that I knew that, oh, this is starting. I'm not going to just go take a vacation from my job, essentially. So yeah, I mean, habits can go both ways, and so you gotta make sure you identify those bad habits and do something to fix them.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, one of the worst things you can do as an author is and it's such an easy temptation is to just be like, well, I've got all these important author things to manage. Well, yeah, but if you don't write another book, are you really an author anymore? I mean, I guess you can still make a lot of money not releasing books if you're a big name, big shot who's got a TV series or something. But in general, for the working author, like the moment you stop producing, you're going to see a decline in your career unless you've got a lot of other stuff going. So to always build that habit of writing, even if it's 100 words a day or 500 words a day or 1,000 words a day, whatever you can manage, and getting to the end of the day and leaving a little gas in the tank so you're excited to resume it the next time you start writing, having the next idea that you're excited about writing. I mean, those are the things that keep me going anyway.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I mean, what you're talking about is kind of a passion for the work. The people that I see that don't burn out really do have a passion for the storytelling. And it's like it's like this job just gets bigger every year, but it's like at the core of it is writing the books. But if you like the work of writing the books, I think it helps you a lot. And as to Jay's point, if you do it every day, it helps you a lot. And then I think perspective, like it's with what we're doing changing so much, being like having a perspective that everything is just going to keep changing, and that being a lifelong learner helps you. It's like, because if you think you've got this figured out, that's like really dangerous. It's like, so having this mindset of constantly being open to reassessing and sort of thinking about, all right, where am I, what's happening with my career, and then yeah, just having the passion for doing the work.
Getting to that point of that you mentioned, like things are always changing in this business, and you have to stay current with all the new things that are happening every year, and it just gets harder and harder to like compete in the ad space and everything. But what's heartening is that what, a good story that never changes. People are always going to want a good story to read, and as long as you're working on your craft and making your stories good and fun and entertaining, you can slide a little bit on all these other things as long as you're doing that good story and giving the readers something that they really want, because there's always going to be readers. Ebooks come along, changes everything, but we still have readers, we still have books. It's never, books are never going away. So I think we have job security, I think.
So the AI replaces us all.
Yeah.
So in terms of, so obviously writing books is an absolutely critical thing to keeping your readers engaged, but do you pursue any other ways of keeping in touch with your readers via social media or newsletters, or how do you handle that relationship?
I have a Facebook group that I use. I think most of us do, but I use it quite a bit. I have a decent number of people on there, and I try to keep in touch with them. That's probably the biggest way that I do it, although I know a lot of authors do many different things, but it is good to stay in touch with your readers and get a feeling for what they like and what they don't like and what they want. And most of them are pretty good. I mean, most of them are pretty reasonable, and if you tell them something's going to be late, they take it pretty well, most of them. So
just keep your eye out for my upcoming TikTok videos.
Yeah.
They're on the way.
So what about the rest of you?
I definitely use Facebook, probably more than I should. Doom scrolling is a real danger that gets in the way of writing. A little Twitter here and there. Email lists, very important. And then personally, I'm looking at ways to engage outside of existing social networks, just because I think a lot of people are kind of tuning out of existing social networks where it's just kind of, it does not ennoble humanity. It doesn't bring out the best in us. And so coming up with something a little more specialized where you can really connect with readers on a more personal level seems like a good option for the future. But I try not to spend too much time on it, because there's that line between cultivating really loyal, engaged fans and spending literally every hour of the day on social media.
Yeah, I'm probably the worst person to ask this question because I'm not a very social person in general, and so it's like,
what?
Which of us is? Which of us is?
Right.
But I have a Facebook group that I've posted in maybe twice in my entire life, so it's like a ghost town in there. I have an email list that I probably haven't emailed in a year. I didn't release any books last year, so I typically just email my list when I have a new book or there's like a sale or something. So those people probably wonder who I am when that email arrives, and that's it's always ideal. And then Twitter and Instagram, I don't even know the logins, but I mean, there's like we have those accounts, but yeah.
Yeah, social engagement with my readers is admittedly like it's one of the worst things, or not one of the worst. It's one of the one of my failings as an author. I have not done very much of it at all. And I get these aspirations of, yeah, I'm going to do this Facebook group with all my readers, and then I set it up and people join, and then like, okay, now what are we going to talk about? You know what? Look, there's a squirrel over there. There's all these things to do, and I get distracted. And but that's like one of my I guess resolutions this year is that's one of the things I'm trying to get better at is engaging a little more with the readers and having more of I guess you'd call it the super readers, the super dedicated fan base that will follow you anywhere across whatever genre. Because I've written a lot of space opera, and I kind of want to write something new. I think like maybe like techno thriller or even just regular mystery and thriller, and you want fans that they're gonna follow you wherever you go. And so that's one of my things this year. I've got for the first time I was engaging people in my Facebook group the other day, and it was actually kind of fun. Like I wish I had done it more these past few years. And but mainly what I've relied on since I started was just the mailing list. You mail people when you release, and that on that I was rather engaging. Like people would email me back, and I try to respond to everyone, and that was my main reader engagement there was email.
So the answer to your question is we're all crappy at this. We don't we don't do much.
Well, releasing books is the key thing. It seems so that is always good to hear. So in terms of the industry now, what trends do you see in indie publishing in the coming year and beyond?
You're doing all the easy questions. Like, this is fantastic. Nick, what do you think?
I've honestly been kind of out of it this year, so I'm maybe lots of us have been out of it this year, but it's I don't know. I will be very interested to see what these guys say. But Kindle just came out with Kindle Vella. Has that even launched yet? Is it?
I don't know.
Believe that you can upload, but it's not yet available.
Okay, it's not available yet. I toyed around maybe with some ideas to see, but maybe I could try that. I don't know if I will, but yeah, trends in indie publishing. I mean, it seems like years ago the trend was AMS, and then it became it was Facebook ads, then AMS, and what's the next big thing to launch your series and everything, and these days I just don't think, is there anything new that's coming down the pipeline? I just don't know.
Spending obscene amounts on advertising and getting a little return for it.
There's always something new, but honestly, I think it just comes down to the books, and they're fairly unchanged. Yeah. I mean, I think everything new comes along, and maybe something catches on, something doesn't. But I think if you just write good books and keep putting them out, I think you'll do okay.
Yeah. Some of the things I've been watching, I was very fascinated with Brandon Sanderson's Kickstarter. He did the 10th anniversary of his
the Leatherbound.
Yeah, the Leatherbound books of the Stormlight Archive, and I think it sold nearly $7 million is what it generated in revenue. So I think the Kickstarter, what's happening on Kickstarter is pretty interesting. I think having books that cross over into either board games or is it 3D models and toys, or I think those are pretty interesting areas. I think as an author, depending on where you are in your career, it's the things we struggle with is like, how much do you invest in doing what writing books, and how much do you invest in these new things that may or may not be, additive to your revenue or whatever you're trying to do, building your fans. I do think, audio, it feels like continues to get bigger every year, especially for science fiction and fantasy, and releasing. I know, Jay, your new series coming out concurrently with audio and ebook, and I think that's an emerging trend. That's good.
Something I've been thinking more and more about recently is, the marketplace. It seems like it gets more saturated every year with new authors coming in, and not just authors, but frankly the ghostwriting publishing houses. Like, they just churn out all these books, and it's like, how do I keep up with that? How do I compete with that? And I've been thinking more and more about. I've been talking to some of these guys, offline here, and it's really hard for anyone else to be you. all of us, the marketplace is saturated with ads and Facebook ads and AMS ads and all this stuff, and all these authors can pump in thousands and thousands of dollars, and sometimes you can't compete with that. But what you have the lockup, what you have the monopoly on is you, and you can what am I trying to say here? It's
sort of like building your brand is the big thing you can defend.
Yeah, exactly. Your brand. No one else can be you in your engagement with your readers. And so I've been trying to think of ways to do things that aren't scalable by other authors. Like, some guy with $100,000 to spend can't reproduce what I'm doing because, well, he's not me.
Right.
And
that's a great point. Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure what all that is, but it's going to involve something with engaging with your fans as yourself, and like opening up a little bit, and instead of being this anonymous author behind the screen who only puts out the books, which I was very happy to do, but it might not cut it anymore. So I'm not sure, but that's just something that's been on my mind.
So it feels like building that relationship with the audience becomes even more important. And to the earlier point, it feels like we all need to up our game with this social engagement, and but to Robert's point, I do think that there's certainly some Facebook fatigue, and it's like, then what does that look like engaging with readers? Obviously, it's like email is only so scalable. Because like I send out the email newsletter, and it's like I respond to everyone, but man, it takes
hours
of time.
Yeah.
And the walls are getting a little higher in terms of the spam filters, and
that too.
So just finding a way to engage with them is like Nick said, in a way that only you can. Maybe you should build a rocket in your backyard and offer people a ride, like Jeff Bezos, kind of.
Buy my book, I will build you a rocket.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. That's
I would take you up on that.
To engage.
Easy for him.
Yeah, but building an author brand is definitely an important thing, and it's when you can find that. So I have my Space Nebula thing that I've worked on, and I have that branding throughout, and we'll see. So for authors that have achieved some level of success, it's not their first book that they're putting out there, and they've built up a little bit of a reader base. What advice would you give for how to take their career to the next level and start working toward that bestseller status?
That's a good one. In my mind, I think it sort of starts with, what do you want out of writing? It's like I'm a big believer that there's not a one-size-fits-all definition of success. For one author, it might be, look, I want to pay my mortgage and quit my job. And for another author, it might be, I'm retired, I really enjoy doing this, and I want to keep enjoying doing this. And for that author who's, doing it really as a hobby, getting into AMS or AMG or getting into TikTok might not be the right answer. But for that guy who wants to quit his job, it might be getting more competent in advertising once he has enough books, right? And so for the same person with the same goal, with one book, the answer might be write the next books and wait till your catalog gets bigger. So I think I'm a big believer in figuring out what you want from it. And I don't think it's a one-time event. I think all of us have to constantly reassess, so why am I doing this? What do I want out of it? And on the other side of that, it's like, what are my skills? What Nick was saying, it's like, what's my brand? How am I unique? And it's sort of like, I think that feeds into the kind of story you write, because you want to be writing the story that you're on fire to write, and you also have the skills. Like, when I wrote my first book, I knew I was really good on the science and history, but I had a lot to learn about writing dialogue, constructing my characters, pacing, and all these things. And I thought, here's a genre, that where these things can, they won't matter quite as much as if I was writing like literary fiction or, perhaps a mystery or something like that. So I think, to me, those are the keys to getting to the next level, is sort of reflecting and understanding. And I think also the challenging part is looking at the landscape and what the paths are, right? We know advertising is now a big part of this, and I think building up your brand and your relationship with readers is becoming an even bigger part of it. And then I think just having your books well packaged and well presented doesn't feel optional anymore. It's like my first book, I did the cover, my mom edited it. It's like, you can't do that anymore. And it's a shame, because does feel sometimes like it costs more money to get into this business. There's a bigger commitment in terms of your time and what you have to invest in professional product, but I do think that's the stakes.
I'll agree that's changed. I did my own covers too at first, and my first cover I bought the artwork. It cost me $2, I think, and I did everything else myself. So
Microsoft Paint, you know,
and now it costs me substantially more than that. But they're also a lot nicer. But yeah, I think the writing kind of remains the same. I mean, you can write different things, but you want to write something that both you want to write and also that you feel that your audience wants to read. And one thing I think you can do is try to pay attention to whatever fans you do have, and angle your writing a little more towards them. Like if they like this and they like that, but they didn't like this so much, you know, try to match it as much as you can. But I wouldn't go too far because you have to be able to write it too. So
that way lies madness now.
Yeah, right. That way lies madness.
Along those lines, like when I was researching Constitution, I actually went in and I read reviews. You know, they say don't read reviews, but I went in and I read every 1-star review on all my books, and then all the books that I was trying to emulate. Every 1-star review and every 5-star review. And I wanted to see what were the readers expecting and what pissed them off and what they really loved. I wanted to know that, and that's a good resource for that is reviews. I read a ton before I did Constitution. So.
I agree with that. I did the same thing.
And then I shut myself after. One thing I was thinking of, like for an author that's kind of got their sea legs a little bit, but they haven't had a lot of success. What I did early on, before I had any success really at all, was, you know, this job is kind of a lonely job. You know, we don't have a water cooler to go hang out at. Early in the day, we had K-boards. You know, there were a bunch of us were back there in 2012, 2013. And that's actually where I met these guys, is back at K-boards.
Yeah.
And after my first few books, I was like, you know, I do want to get to the next level. But I can't do this by myself. And so I started to look out for like-minded people, people who had some success, but also people that I felt like I would get along with. And that's actually how I met Robert initially. It was like I started seeing him on Twitter, and I was like, "You're hilarious. You're really funny." So I start going back and forth with him, and we start talking offline on email and text and everything. And then before you know it, we're hanging out together. And so I went into the friendship, eventually hoping to, you know, I'm gonna learn something about marketing from this guy. But that's not what happened. I mean, I did learn a little bit of marketing, but what happened was I learned more about the writing craft from Robert than I had from anyone else. Like we sit down, we do some plotting sessions together, and he goes through his method for putting together a story, and I'm like, oh, this is amazing. I love this. And so my point is, it's really hard to do this job alone. And if you're doing it alone, you're trying to find success, I would say go out and find some like-minded people, some other like-minded authors, and make some friends and get to know them and hang out together online and even in real life. Even in real life, we're hanging out. And that was game changing for me, I thought.
Yeah, finding some people at your level or slightly above that can help guide you up to the next level. Because I mean, what is the next level for you might not be the next level for somebody else. And so what you want to do is you want to find a group of like-minded people that you can associate with, and you can all kind of work your way up together. You know, AG got into the game and like blew the doors off the place, and so for the longest time we're like, what's this guy doing? And so he's so kind and like generous with his time, and it's been really cool. But like we'll be talking about something, and he'll like mention something in passing, and I'm like, that was the greatest marketing idea I've heard in like 6 years. And he just tosses it off like nothing, and I asked him about it, and he's like, oh, I forgot about that already. It was no big deal to him. And that's the value of talking to people who are at a different level than you are, is that sometimes they'll mention one little thing, and you go, holy crow, that is exactly what I've been looking for to take the next step for me. So that's the value of having a friend group or a peer group that you can go to and bounce ideas off of. And I mean, obviously it's fun to also hang out in person. Yeah, there's that. Mm-hmm.
I've been hearing about the mastermind groups. It's one of the terms that's been tossed around. I have my own little writer group too. That it's been so incredibly valuable, especially over the last year where we haven't had nearly as many in-person get-togethers, just having a group to go to all the time is great. So are there any other thoughts that you would like to share and impart, any wisdom that we haven't already touched on?
I don't know. Pearls of wisdom, gentlemen.
As the old man of the group, my only advice is to stay off my lawn.
I do think, I mean, the environment we're in is like, the world getting back to normal, but it's been a stressful year for everybody. And if you're an early stage author, it can be really uncertain and really stressful. I mean, I think what you touched on, finding a group of peers that can help you stay sane. I mean, I think it's something really magical about talking with people that are going through the same experience as you. And it's like, at home, like, my wife, I talked to her, but at some point she was like, you just got to stop talking about this. I don't know what you're talking about. And it sounds crazy and you're crazy. And, but, if you talk to other people that are going through the same thing, I mean, they get it. And there's something I think really healthy about that. I think the other thing is a perspective on writing. I mean, I think in the business we're in, it's like, there's something I think perhaps not healthy about being able to go online and see where your book is ranked at any moment, and within your category or within the store, or being able to see what you've made that day up to that hour and minute. And it's just like, I also think what we're having to spend on advertising sometimes is a big risk, and it can put pressure on us. So I think that having the right mental perspective and having people around you is becoming more and more important. And then I think having a perspective of this is if you want to do this as a career, I mean, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And it's just, you do what you can every day, and then you get up and try to do it better. And back to Jay's point, it's like writing every day is sort of the foundation of the whole thing. And if you can do that and you can keep growing as a writer, some of the other stuff is going to sort itself out. I mean, you'll get better at ads over time, and you'll get better at, building your audience and engaging. And but if the stories aren't there, and if people aren't entertaining, you're not finding those right readers, the rest of it almost doesn't matter how good it is, in my opinion. But
in the end, the only thing that really matters is finding good readers. I mean, that's all that really matters.
Mm-hmm.
I do agree that you need to get together once in a while because, I mean, let's be honest, this is a very alone profession. No matter how you slice it or dice it, you spend hours and hours by yourself. So getting together once in a while with some other people who do the same thing is a good thing to do. A very good thing.
Find an author friend that is brutally honest.
Yeah, find one who'll be honest with you, because you need somebody to tell you when something sucks as well as when it's good.
Don't find someone that's going to blow smoke.
And that's a harder thing than it sounds like to find.
Yeah, awesome. So now, where can readers find each of you if they are unfamiliar with your work?
Amazon.
Amazon's a good place to start. Yeah, so when I do website, I guess it'sjallenwrites.com.
Jallenwrites.com. Yeah, it's ALLAN. So JAYALLAN.
And then I totally copied his website. I did Nick Webb Writes. So
there you go.
Nice.
I was like, that flows. So yeah.
I'm at robertjcrane.com.
agriddle.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for your wonderful insights, and I am so thankful for you to share your time with us. So thank you